Welcome to Ports and Palaces podcast. It is April 15th, and today we'll be asking the burning question, is it worth it to stay on property at Disney World?
Good morning, everyone. Happy tax day. Got a refund burning a hole in your pocket? Well, today we're going to talk about whether it's worth spending it on a Disney resort stay. Like Chad said, today, we will be breaking down the tiered levels of Disney World resorts and if they are worth it for guests. We're going to break this down by resort tiers. So we're going to start with value, then moderate, and deluxe. And then we're going to finish off with some cost and convenience comparisons to off-property options. First up, let's talk about the overall perks of staying on property. So any resort on property is going to have these perks. One that is big, and I don't know if a lot of people realize, but you can book that package. It has to be a package with resort stay and tickets, but you can book it with $200 deposits and then make payments on it. That is huge, and it really helps because you don't have to have a bulk payment done right off the bat. Then the other really huge perk is priority booking. So this is for dining reservations and lighting lanes. So 60 days out, you can book your dining reservations for your entire trip up to, I think it's like 14 days. So unless you're staying for just a whole lot of time, you can book your entire trip at 60 days out.
That's cool.
Yeah. And then for lighting lanes, you can pre-book these 7 days out. So this is not new. It's new-ish. This started back like late summer. So it hasn't even been a year that you were able to pre-book these lighting lanes. So that is a big deal. That's a big deal for on-property. Off-property is 3 days out. So that's a big advantage. Then you get early theme park entry for all guests. You also, for the year of 2025, I don't know about 2026 yet, but at least for 2025, you get to go to a water park on your check-in day. So there are 2 water parks on property. Usually they are like only offered one at a time. So either Typhoon Lagoon or Blizzard Beach are open one at a time. But because of this perk, they're actually currently going to both be open at least for a while. So if you haven't checked one out or you've missed one because of when you go, this is a really cool perk. Now, this perk only really works if you are arriving early. So, if you're going to maybe arrive late, stay off property one night, and then get on property early. It does work out too that flights, the cheapest flight is usually the earliest. So, if you're trying to fly in that day, it might actually still be cost effective to fly in early. But the water parks are getting to capacity, which is new because of this perk. So sometimes if you're arriving later in the afternoon, those parks could be already closed. Another perk of staying on property is transportation. So honestly and truly, once you are on property, you are set for transportation. Like, you don't need to worry about where you're going to park, what you're going to do. You've got transportation at your fingertips. If you are parking or bringing a personal car or renting a car, if you are an on-property guest, you get complimentary parking at resorts and theme parks. So that's a huge advantage. And then if you are doing a package stay, so again, that's theme park tickets and hotel reservations, you get what's called magical extra savings discounts. This includes mini golf. It's got savings at a lot of restaurants. And I don't even think people who go to Disney regularly know about this. It is some extra savings that you get as that packaged perk for staying on property. You also get reduced cost magic bands. So magic bands are a nice little extra thing to have. You can link like your hotel key to it. You can link a credit card to it. So you don't have to fiddle with a card. Everything kind of just goes on this watch looking device. And if you're staying on property, that is a reduced cost. So that's a nice perk. Then complimentary Wi-Fi. Most places in America offer complimentary Wi-Fi at this point, but it is something to keep in note. And then something that I think people forget is that these are not just hotels. These are resorts. So themed pools, food options, a lot of what we're going to talk about are multiple food options. Really nice pools with water slides. Disney does like recreation schedules and, they have s'mores and weekly movie nights and usually multiple times during the week. Yeah. pool activities, tie-dye shirts. I mean, they just have a lot of extra things than just staying at a hotel, there to sleep and move on. Like you're paying a resort cost, but they give you resort amenities. And then one perk that only goes to one of the categories, so we'll go into it more when we get to that category of resort, is extended evening hours for deluxe guests. So those are all those perks. That's a lot of perks for staying on property.
That is definitely a value package for sure.
Yeah.
At that point, you are lucky to pay less than $400 a night for your stay at Disney hotels.
Yes, you can actually stay at a resort cheaper than that, but that's what we're going to start talking about now.
All right, so now let's kind of break down some of the types of resorts on Disney property. First up, the value hotels. These hotels include the All-Star Movies, All-Star Sports, All-Star Music, Art of Animation, and Pop Century. Each value resort holds multiple buildings with one main lobby building where there's food courts, shops. The bus stop is there, the bellhop is there to hold onto your luggage and stuff like that.
Yeah, everything's kind of contained in one building.
Yeah, so it's kind of nice to be, if you can get a room that's closer to all of those mainstay amenities. Kind of one of the downsides is if you are closer to the lobby, you may expect a lot more traffic at the pools or a lot more traffic in the cafeteria, stuff like that. So that kind of goes with any resort that you stay at on property. Keep in mind, these are value resorts, so think way big, in-your-face theming and decorations.
Yeah.
Funny enough, All-Star Music specifically and All-Star Sports, you'll see like giant saxophones or banjos in certain area. And weirdly enough, in the country section of All-Star Music, they decided to put together banjos, violins, and cowboy boots. I didn't realize cowboy boots were an instrument.
Well, they could be, creativity.
Percussion, yeah, I guess.
So I think overall our personal favorite is Art of Animation. So because of all the over-the-top theming, and I don't want to say over-the-top like it's gaudy, it's just vibrant with its theming. These resorts are great for families with young children, or if you're, excited, it's your first trip to Disney World. These are really great hotels to kind of get you excited to see all that theming. I think our personal favorite is Art of Animation.
By far. I really like all of the concept art in the main lobby and honestly throughout some of the resort areas.
All the concept art is really cool. Art of Animation obviously is kind of paying homage to animation. So the lobby has a lot of like hand-drawn art concepts. One downside we're going to talk about as we get through some of these hotels is that the rooms are very similar for all value, but you're going to pay extra the closer you get to that main lobby.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's going to be where that price range comes in. Now we've said that we love Art of Animation, but tons of people love Pop. So all my Pop lovers out there, don't come after us. We like Pop too. It's a very fun resort, but our favorite is Art of Animation.
Not to discredit it, but from what I've heard, Pop Century is louder. There's a lot of college-age kids that like to go to Pop Century compared to Art of Animation. Part of it might be the price, but some of it's also the pools and amenities that are there.
Yeah, like I said, Pop has its fan club, but Pop also kind of jumping ahead, but Pop has access to the Skyliner. And so that is a really nice perk to that resort at a value cost. And so a lot of people want to stay there, and you will find a lot of like college kids that'll room up together, quick jaunt over to Disney World. And so it can get kind of loud around that main pool area.
I would have to say by far the most cheesy and somewhat gaudy of the All-Star Resorts is All-Star Sports. It's really cool, honestly, but it's kind of a centerpiece in the football section. There is a football goal built into kind of the main walkway area, but it's actually almost like a compact football field going down in between the buildings. So we see a lot of younger kids looking to play a quick game of football.
Like Chad mentioned, the All-Stars, there's 3 separate resorts, the All-Star Sports, the All-Star Music, and All-Star Movies. They're all kind of grouped together into one massive resort called the All-Stars, but they're not like so close together you can just kind of hop between one or the other. There are parking lots between them, but they each have, even though people are going to say, oh yeah, I'm staying at the All-Stars, they do all kind of have a different vibe, even though their layout is very different. Well, the layout is similar, but the like theming and things like that is very different. So
All-Star Music specifically has a really cool giant jukebox in one of the areas. In other areas, there's like giant xylophones and bongos and maracas, saxophones, electric guitars. Yeah, just a plethora of different instruments.
And I think All-Star Movies maybe lends itself the best to families with particularly younger children because it has reference to classical movies like 101 Dalmatians or Toy Story are the biggest ones, but there's also Herbie the Love Bug, which is cute.
Yeah.
Mighty Ducks. So, you've got your millennial parents that know about the Mighty Ducks, and then Fantasia, which while not part of Fantasmic, it kind of always is reminiscent to me of Fantasmic. So there are like those kind of plugs in at All-Star Movies. Sports really is just themed to sports. Mm-hmm. And music is really just kind of themed to music. So there's not a whole lot of Disney in there, except at music. There's a little bit. So like there's a Broadway section where they pull in some like Disney on Broadway posters. And then the Three Caballeros pool is really fun over there. So.
It is really fun. One of the questions that we got a lot about regarding the value hotels, people were asking, what section should they try to reserve if they can, based on how close they would be to the main lobbies where the bus stops were. And in this case, we've kind of mapped it out and found that either try to reserve the Fantasia section of All-Star Music or the Surf's Up section of All-Star Sports. Those seem to be, while high traffic, closest to all of the amenities and services possible. Barring, if you can reserve at Art of Animation or Pop Century, those are very, very close to the Skyliner, which we'll talk more about.
Yeah. Something you want to keep in mind with the All-Star specifically and Pop Century is that the rooms are almost identical. So you're not really paying for like a different kind of room. They're very similar, but Disney does kind of tier out the preference of location. So you do have to sometimes pay extra to be closer to the main lobby or things like that. You also can get kind of smart with it if you're a good researcher, you have a good travel agent to, maybe you really just want to pay for that standard room. You can put in a room request that could put you closer to that areas without having to pay for it. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, All-Star Music, though, is a little different. They have family suites. So these are pretty nice suites. There's a separate bedroom that has a bathroom, and then there's like the main area that has a queen-size bed and a pull-down queen-size bed. And what really stands apart these family suites is it has a full like service kitchen. So almost what you would pay for these deluxe villas that we're going to talk about later in the show, you can get that at All-Star Music. Now it's only at All-Star Music. It's not at All-Star Movies. It's not at All-Star Sports. These are a great deal if you're needing more room. My biggest plug for that is book early. So as soon as rates come out, you want to be ready to get your deposit in, get that book room on hold because these suites go fast. I was looking for a client just when things opened up for 2025 and we got it on hold right when it came out. And then, a couple days later when we went to go make her deposit, thankfully I'd put the room on hold, but all the rooms were already gone. So just in 2 days, like for her time zone or like her time period of when she was going to go, they were gone. thankfully had the room on hold. We were good to go. But like if we had waited those 2 days, they would have been gone. So just know 2026 will more than likely come out sometime in May. So we're looking at maybe potentially in the next couple weeks. If you're looking to go in 2026 and you really want to stay in a family suite at All Star Music, reach out to a travel agent or just be on guard for when those dates come out because they will go very quickly. Something to note about the All Star Resorts is that they all share a bus, which can add to some significant wait times.
That's definitely a funnel. I don't like that at all.
Yeah, so that is something to note. If you are driving a personal car and you're wanting to stay at the All Stars, you might be better off actually driving because they do share a bus loop and they share buses. So just something to note.
Something kind of also with that is with all of the All-Star resorts, you have to cross the parking lots to get from each of the All-Star resorts.
Yeah, they all
you
kind of are
can't just cut across down the main walkway or anything like it's cut off.
There are 2 of them that do have like a little main cross. I can't remember which 2 it is. For the most part, yeah, you'd have to cross over a parking lot. So not like you can just hop from one to the other.
One small thing to note, this may not hold up come time for promotions and stuff like that. But in general, if you're kind of wanting lower traffic at your amenities, such as the pool, I would stay at the Mighty Ducks section or the Hoops basketball or even a center court, which seemingly it's a lot of younger families but are willing to walk much farther to the main lobbies or the main amenities. But they seem to have their own good little kiddie pools and little pool sections for themselves. So don't discount that. And because they are farther away from the main lobbies, the rooms might be a little bit cheaper per night, possibly.
Because of those standard areas. And then moving out of the All-Star resorts, we've already kind of mentioned these 2, but the other 2 value resorts are Pop Century and Art of Animation. These resorts are both along the Skyliner route, so this is a new form of transportation that is probably our favorite form of transportation. Our daughter thinks it's a ride, and that's okay. It's free, and we're going to roll with it. But because they're along the Skyliner route, they are increased in cost.
Oh, yeah.
But increased in value at the same time. Like, you can get to the parks a lot faster by Skyliner than you can by bus. So both of these resorts do kind of stick to that value theming, though, that they have that larger-than-life theming.
Pop Century is themed more towards the decades of like the 1970s and 1980s. Even though we really like Art of Animation, it really has a die-hard fan base that likes to go back to that resort. Call it nostalgia, call it just the vibe. I hate that word.
Call it a vibe.
I stayed there as a kid. I mean, I was a kid, so it was a hotel's a hotel. Yeah,
I was going to say, I know we haven't personally stayed at Pop, but we are going to check it out for one night in our October trip, so we're excited to check it out. But I know your parents have both mentioned how you stayed there. So, you know, talking about you didn't go a whole lot to Disney World as a kid. Obviously, that's changed now. But for them to still talk about that resort years upon years later, like that just kind of shows you how these people really attach to that resort. Yeah. It's definitely a fan place. And it just got some recent renovations. So the food court and lobby area were just renovated. And some of their new menu items look really intriguing. We'll have to check them out when we go.
I'd like to see that. Even back when I went there as a kid with my parents, a lot of the decorations seemed outdated and just very old. But
outdated in a fun way. Like, oh yeah, remember that from the 70s? Or they almost just kind of lean into that. Trendy is not the right word, but just kind of that, I don't want to say vibe and just throw you off. Yeah, that era and just what made it so special. And so it just kind of, I think people attach to that really well. Now, the rooms at Pop are pretty much identical to the standard rooms at the All-Stars. So this is kind of why we have not stayed at Pop yet, because the rooms aren't much different for us than the All-Stars that we have stayed at. So that's why we haven't checked it out yet. But they've got that one queen bed and then the queen size wall pull down bed. So very standard. All the rooms are that way. There's no special rooms at Pop. You're just going to pay for like room preference. So if you want to be closer to the pool or you want to be closer to the Skyliner, you're paying extra for that. I do know I have a lot of people that want to stay at Pop, and that's just where they want to go, and that's okay. And they would just want to pay standard rooms, but you can put in a room request for a standard room that's pretty close to the Skyliner. So again, just kind of knowing the resorts or having a travel agent that knows the resorts and knows what to put in that room request for you.
So across the bridge, actually.
Yes, they're very close.
Yeah, the bridge is actually where the Skyliner Junction is. Mm-hmm. We'll say it again. It's our Art of Animation isn't our favorite. Each building zone has its own theme and pool. There's standard rooms themed to Little Mermaid. We've actually stayed in a Little Mermaid room. Mm-hmm. We like that a lot. The theming was...
It's a little outdated. I hope that they get renovated soon. But it was cute.
Outdated, but it wasn't in her face. I liked it. It was calm. Mm-hmm. Now, I remember this as a kid because we walked over there, but there is a giant statue of both Ursula and King Triton. So it was pretty cool to see them on our last trip. There's also Lion King, kind of newer. There's Finding Nemo and Cars areas as well, with statues that you can take pictures with, a bunch of the different characters.
The Cars area in particular is probably our favorite as far as theming goes. We spent a long time in there just checking out all the car statues. They were really cool.
I mean, it's got everybody from Radiator Springs. Mm-hmm. It's got Lightning McQueen, Mater, Doc. Who's the love interest of
Sally
McQueen? Sally. It's also got Flo,
Ramon, and
it's got Sarge and everybody.
Yeah, they did a good job, and their pool is so cute. It's themed to the Cozy Cone Motel. Yeah. So that's just really fun. And then Finding Nemo has a themed pool, and then it also has the splash pad.
They've also got a bunch of themed like jungle gym activity areas. Mm-hmm. Specifically, it's like you're jumping around or running around in coral.
Yeah, the sea anemones. Yeah. And then Little Mermaid, that section, even though it's a standard room section, it does have a pool as well. It doesn't really have as much theming as the others, but it does have a pool. The cool thing about Art of Animation, you've got those Little Mermaid, those standard rooms with 2 queen-size beds, but the Lion King area, the Finding Nemo, and the Cars area are all family suites. So this is another way to kind of be in a value resort that gives you more space. So you've got a bedroom with a queen-size bed, and then that bedroom has a separate bathroom. And then you've got like a living area that has a sofa bed, and then a dining area that has like a wall pull-down bed, and then those areas share a bathroom. So that's really nice. I will say that the family suites sometimes push you into like moderate or deluxe level pricing. Mm-hmm. So
if you're careful of that.
Yeah, if you're looking at those resort or that family suite and you're really not wanting that over the top theming, it may actually be more advantageous to look at the next tiers. We're going to talk about the moderate or deluxe. But they're really cute suites. We've stayed in them. We love them. And they do have good deals. I was even looking, we just had a Disney Plus subscriber promotion drop last week. And the car suites were dropped down to $250 a night, which is cheap for those suites. So deals do come out. You just have to be on top of those because the suites don't typically have promotions. So you really want to kind of watch and see when those come out.
Even though Art of Animation and Pop Century are both labeled as value resorts, I really don't see them that way compared to some of the All-Star resorts, not to bash them. But I would honestly call these strategic resorts, specifically, and I'll say it again, but the Skyliner Junction. Mm-hmm. Now keep in mind, this station or junction, whatever you're going to call it, by Art of Animation on the bridge is not the main station. Yeah. Do not get that confused. If you're getting on one gondola, you have to transfer to another one at Caribbean Beach Station in order to get to the main junction.
So we'll remind you this when we get to Caribbean Beach. You'll notice that Chad and I say it differently, and that's okay. But Caribbean Beach is the main Skyliner hub. So you're actually going to go from Art of Animation Pop, that junction, and you're going to take a Skyliner gondola to Caribbean Beach where you're going to get off. And then from there, you'd either hop on the Epcot side of the gondolas or the Hollywood Studios. So just know that you're not going to get straight there. It's very quick. And I mean, you're there very quickly, but it is not the main station.
And while Pop Century and Art of Animation are right there, keep in mind that a lot of people are taking advantage of that. Yes, it's nice because you're not all sharing the same bus station, stuff like that. You are, with the Skyliner, you're literally getting almost a direct route to some of the parks at that point. The caveat is a lot of people are going to be trying to take advantage of that early in the morning. And so try to get to the Skyliner to line up for it. Yes, there will be a line.
It gets a line for rope drop.
Yeah, especially for rope droppers. Try to get there as early as you can. What time would you say, Kirsten?
So that changes. It kind of just depends on when park opening is. Typically, the Skyliner starts running about an hour and a half before park opening. Park open is 9. It's typically going to be at 7:30, but that does change. So if you get in to your resort a day before you have to hit the parks, that's a good thing to maybe walk over to the Skyliner area and talk to a cast member. So I would say if it's starting to run at 7:30, let's just say, then you're probably going to want to be in line at 6:45 or 7.
Oh, yeah.
If you're wanting to be at the front of the pack, which if you're wanting to try to get to some of those high rope drop areas we talked about last week, you do want to be at the front of the Skyliner pack for Art of Animation and Pop because of what we're going to tell you next with that moderate hotel of Caribbean Beach. So before I let Chad move on to moderates, I just want to do kind of a quick summary of what we talked about with Value Resorts. So Value Resorts all offer bus transportation, with Art of Animation and Pop also offering access to the Skyliner. They also offer at least one main pool, but most of them have secondary smaller pools as well, called like the quiet pools. They all have a main lobby with a food court, and no Value Resort at this time of this recording has a table service restaurant. So they're all quick service, typically a food court. They are always somewhere in the range of $200 to $400 a night, but promotions can get it down into the hundreds easily. And I'm just going to go ahead and say this. Every single Disney date has some sort of promotion, which does cut the cost down quite a bit. I shouldn't say every, but every single client I've had has had at least some sort of promotion pop up that I've been able to apply to their trip. So it's not unheard of to get these resorts down into that hundreds range, hundreds being $100 to $199, that hundreds range. But next up is the moderate hotels. So these are a step up from Value.
As Kirsten stated, these resorts are a step up from the Value Resorts. Their room design and resort amenities are much better. Each resort has at least one feature pool that includes a water slide. Specifically, we really enjoyed not to get off topic here, but we really enjoyed the water slides at Caribbean Beach. Mm-hmm. We'll talk more about that.
And then each building zone typically includes a smaller, quieter pool as well. So got more pool options because the buildings are kind of grouped together in zones.
A lot of these locations include a pool bar or cafe, various names at each of these moderate resorts. There's also at least one table service restaurant in each of these resorts. Mm-hmm.
So the rooms are also bigger in moderate hotels. This is what most people ask, like, what's the main difference? And the main difference from Value to moderate is that size of room. I remember the first time we went from a Value resort to a moderate, there was a noticeable difference in space. So we didn't feel as cramped. That's not to say that just we were like, oh, this feels like an entire house versus an apartment. Like, it's still a hotel room, but you felt more space. There was more, room. I remember particularly our daughter was younger, and so we had to have a stroller and pull-ups and all the things. And in Value, I felt like I was having to kind of maneuver.
It's a lot more floor space to organize that stuff.
Yeah. Like in a Value, I just kind of felt like we had to, make sure it stays here. And okay, well, I'm going to shut the door and then put it here. Whereas in moderate, it's like we just kind of wheeled it in and put it off to the side. And so there's definitely a room space difference in moderate hotels.
With that said, I do want to note that we spend a lot of time actually at our resort stays. Having a larger room is a big preference for us, as Kirsten talked about, not only for the storage, but also the floor space, not being overly cramped.
Now, with all that said, though, I do want to note that we spend more time at our resort than maybe an average Disney World guest does. We are, trying to check out resorts and check out resort amenities, and we go back to our room for midday breaks. And so having a larger room is a big preference for us, and that's why typically we stay moderate or higher. But that's not going to be a big deal for everyone. If you're a family that's truly like, we're all old enough to be able to go, open to close, we're going to be in the parks all day, we're going to be checking out other resorts, we're just there to sleep, then maybe saying that room size at a moderate is really not a big deal for you, and maybe it's not worth the extra cost that we're going to go into here in a bit.
So these moderate level resorts on Disney property include the Caribbean Beach, Port Orleans French Quarter, Port Orleans Riverside, and Coronado Springs. So Port Orleans French Quarter and Port Orleans Riverside are sister resorts and share amenities among each other. They are very close together. They actually have a walking path between them. French Quarter is aptly themed to New Orleans vibes, and you can feel that throughout the resort. French Quarter is where you will find the Mickey's beignets, very tasty.
Yeah,
you've probably seen it all social media if you've been following a lot of Disney marketing. For
Which
adults,
you probably are if you're listening to this.
Yeah. For adults, you can also have them infused with alcohol. Ooh.
Hey,
Personally, I don't think that's very, very good. We'll
have to find out. We're actually staying at this resort this summer for a quick little staycation. So maybe we'll let you know. We'll try one. We'll try one for content research purposes and let you know if they're good or if you just need to pass.
How do you infuse alcohol into a beignet? Is that just like beer?
Yeah, it sounds kind of like it's like, I don't know, maybe it's like infused dough.
Maybe.
We'll have to see. French Quarter's rooms are also in the process of being renovated. So we're really excited to check out the renovated rooms when we have a staycation there this summer. They are currently going through that renovation though. So just know that you might hear some noise if you're doing like a day at the resort. French Quarter is currently having room reservations. Something to note is that French Quarter does not have a table service restaurant.
But Riverside does.
Yes. And it only has one pool.
But it does have a water slide and a splash pad.
Yeah, it looks really fun. I'm really excited to try it.
While the French Quarter is much smaller and more intimate, Riverside is huge. There's multiple pools and multiple bus stops and many different bookable activities like fishing, horse carriage rides. Ooh, that's really cool. And Surrey bikes? What are those?
Yeah, like the bikes where more people can bike together. So you can have like 4 or 5 people on the bike
so
biking
tandem
together.
Bikes. Tandem bikes, basically.
Kind of, but you can also sit in a bench. Like if someone doesn't want to do the pedaling.
Okay.
Maybe we'll have to check it out.
Gotcha. Okay. Most of these activities are housed in Riverside, but are shared between both Riverside and French Quarter.
Yeah. So if you're staying at French Quarter and you think, oh, well, that's only offered at Riverside, just know they're very close and they share those amenities. So you can hop over. Even particularly the horse carriage ride, even though you get on it at Riverside, it takes you through French Quarter. So those are very close together.
From what I understand, the horse carriage rides are a hot commodity. A lot of people try to reserve that.
Especially at night. It's all pretty and lit up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Riverside's rooms will eventually be renovated, just like French Quarters are being now. I take that back. They will be renovated. I can't not guarantee that they're going to look exactly like French Quarters because they don't look exactly like French Quarters right now. They will eventually be renovated. They currently have a certain number of rooms right now called the Royal Rooms, and they are beautiful. They're fit for a princess. So if you're wanting a princess stay at a moderate resort, check out Riverside. French Quarter and Riverside utilize mostly bus transportation to the parks, but you can hop on a boat or a water taxi to take you to Disney Springs. So if you're wanting to spend a lot of time checking out things at Disney Springs, this is a great resort because you can just hop on a little water boat. With that said, when drought season happens, those boats don't run. So don't 100% be like, oh, I'm going to do that for that one thing, because they could be down while you're there.
So confirmation bias aside, Caribbean Beach is probably one of our favorite moderate resorts. The pool is absolutely amazing. There's a pool bar. There's several different slides. Really like the stonework, the way it is.
Yeah, the pool's really nice.
The slides are integrated into the stonework really well. Plenty of activities for the kids to do, even in the kiddie pool. The kiddie pool that we went to actually had one of those big dumping barrels at the top.
I wouldn't call it particularly a kiddie pool, because there wasn't really a pool. It was true. More like a splash pad, but
that's really, a better name for it.
Really like a water park splash pad. Mm-hmm. Like it had slides and things like that. It was really cool. And then we really like the table service restaurant there. It's called Sebastian's Bistro, but they are most known for their pineapple bread pudding. Just a side note, they have a pool bar right by the main pool called Banana Cabana, and you can order the pineapple bread pudding there. Yes, it was.
Do it. It's a shared kitchen,
yes.
As very few people know. Funny enough, well, let me say this. Be wary of the seagulls that are there.
They also like to eat.
We made friends with a little seagull that would not leave our table alone. Mm-mm. And the hostess kept having to shoo him away.
Yeah, but still great food. It was a great time. So it's very beautiful over there.
Fantastic time, yeah.
It really feels like a resort over there, because it is. But Caribbean Beach is also, like we said, we kind of alluded to this in the value section, but Caribbean Beach is also the Skyliner's main hub. So this is where you will have direct access to Hollywood Studios and Epcot. There's no getting somewhere else. You really truly hop on one or the other and you get to where you're going. I remember one time your dad was coming with us for a stay, and he was at Caribbean Beach and we were at Art of Animation. Anyway, so he texted us. We were in line for rope dropping and he said, okay, we're at Hollywood Studios. Are you guys here yet? And we were still in the line for the Art of Animation route to start running on the Skyliner. So that just shows that he was at Caribbean Beach and was able to get on the gondola to Hollywood Studios before we were ever even able to get to Caribbean Beach. So that is a huge perk of staying there. I remember last time we stayed there, I thought we were running late because we walked up and there was no line to get to Epcot. And I was like, oh my gosh, Chad, we're late. Everyone's going to be so far ahead of us. And it was just because it had started running way before they had said they were going to start running. And so we were, still very early in the line. So that was nice.
I mean, we had done everything right. We'd woken up early, gotten everybody dressed, out the door as soon as possible to get in line for the Skyliner. And that just goes to show Caribbean Beach is one junction closer to the main hub for the Skyliners. Really, really pays off, even though you pay a lot more per night.
Make sure to request a room in one of the buildings close to the Skyliner if that's a priority for you. Some of the buildings are quite far from the Skyliner. So really look at that map. Make sure you're requesting the right transportation, because if you're that far away, it may not be that great of an option for you. Some of the Caribbean Beach rooms have been renovated to a Little Mermaid theme.
Yeah.
These were the pirate rooms that have now been renovated to Little Mermaid, and they're adorable. We got to stay in one. If you are trying to get one of those rooms, make sure to request a standard fifth sleeper room. So if you request a preferred room or not a fifth sleeper, you're not going to get one of those rooms. You have to request a standard fifth sleeper room.
The last of the moderate resorts is Coronado Springs. I know probably the least about this one compared to the others. This resort has two distinct areas, the Outer Billings and the Gran Destino Tower.
Mm-hmm. So the tower is newer and it has a different price point than the Outer Building. So that's something to keep in mind. When you're seeing videos or promotional things about Coronado Springs, it is typically the Gran Destino Tower that you're looking at. That is a different price point than the Outer Buildings.
The resort, unfortunately, does not have any special transportation options, but it has some of the most amazing food options on property. A lounge in the Grand Destino Tower overlooks Epcot and Hollywood Studios, which is spectacular to see, especially at night.
Mm-hmm. And when we say special transportation, it does still offer bus transportation. All resorts do, but it doesn't have anything extra special like a monorail or a Skyliner or things like that. Coronado Springs is sometimes labeled as the conference resort. You know, people that are there for work. A
lot of business.
Yeah. So there's a lot of
people.
Upscale food options because some of these people do not actually leave the resort. So I always like to see or say that this resort is kind of your staycation resort because there's just a lot to do and a lot of food and things like that are housed in your resort. Now, something special about Coronado Springs is that it's the only moderate resort on property that offers club level amenities. So some extra things like club level lounge or concierge level services. These are typically only offered at Deluxe Resorts, but Coronado Springs does have it. So if you're wanting club level access to things, but you want that moderate resort price range, this is a great option. Just know that it's club level access, so it is going to be a higher price point than just your regular moderate room. But typically when I'm looking and quoting for things like this, Coronado Springs club level is about the same price as a regular deluxe room. So you're getting more perks as far as club level access for the same price as you would at just a deluxe resort. I can't disagree that the tower is beautiful. I've gotten to tour it and have some food in the tower. The dining options at the resort are amazing, but the outer buildings could use some love. They're a little outdated, and it's also really hard to get a bus from the outer buildings. So that is one thing that all moderate resorts really struggle in. They are very large, and I just feel like they need better bus transportation options because depending on which building you're at, you could potentially be skipped a few times because the buses are full by the time they get to you. And then, like I said, when I think of Coronado Springs, I think of staycation. So the pools, the food options, and the amenities really lend itself well to a staycation. And sometimes that then defeats the purpose of saying, well, they don't have special transportation because a lot of people go here because they like the resort amenities. I mean, just looking at some of the activities you can do, you can paint, you can make sangrias, you can build mosaics. All of this stuff is kind of inside the resort. So it's very resort driven for activities.
With a bigger room in resort amenities, it goes without saying that these rooms include a big price jump from the values. Without promotions, these rooms typically run $300 to $500 a night.
Yeah. With promotions, you can usually see those down in that 200 range. So 250, 200. And then finally, as far as Disney World resorts go, let's look at the highest tier, and that is Deluxe Resorts. So I alluded to this at the very beginning of the podcast episode, but these resorts come with extra perks that include extended evening hours. So once the park is closed on certain parks, certain nights. So it's not every night, it's not every park, but certain parks, certain nights, there are extended evening hours that allow you up to 2 hours inside that park, which is a huge perk, especially if you're not a morning person and you'd rather just do extended evening hours. These resorts, for the most part, also have closer proximity to parks or certain parks, and many include walking distance to a park or some other direct access like a boat taxi. Most deluxe hotels or resorts have at least one table service restaurant, and they are top notch. Like a lot of times when you're hearing people say, oh, I want to try this resort or this restaurant in this resort, they're talking about it in a deluxe resort. They also include multiple lounges and specialty quick service options that are not just standard burgers and chicken fingers. These amenities come with a price point, though, that's a little higher. So you're looking at, without a promotion, about $600 to $1,000 a night to stay. Yeah, to stay at these resorts. So it's not unheard of, though, to find a good deal. I was actually doing a quote yesterday for a client and found Grand Floridian for $428. So that was a heck of a deal. $600 to $1,000 is about the average cost. Now, deluxe resorts are special in their own right that they are broken into 2 separate price points. So if they're not already high enough, they then take that and change it because they have 2 separate kind of resorts inside one resort. So you have your standard deluxe rooms. Those are about $600 to $700 a night. And then you have the higher range is what we call villas. So these are 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, or 3 bedroom suites that hold, families really, or multiple families, and those are at that higher range. So it looks a little better when you're thinking about, okay, well, the $8,000-$9,000 range is actually for like multiple families could stay there. So the deluxe resorts on property, I am just going to tell you the resorts. I'm not going to tell you like their villa areas. That could be a whole episode on its own. But the deluxe resorts on properties are Wilderness Lodge, Animal Kingdom Lodge, Fort Wilderness, The Cabins, Contemporary, Grand Floridian, Polynesian Resort, the Riviera, Boardwalk, Beach Club, Yacht Club, Old Key West, and Saratoga Springs. So a lot of deluxe resorts. Animal Kingdom Lodge, Old Key West, and Saratoga Springs are usually similar price points. It's mostly because they don't have any special transportation to the parks. So they are pretty far away from the parks.
One pretty cool fact about Animal Kingdom Lodge, it actually has safari animals on property. I've never heard this before. Make sure to splurge, if you can, for a Savannah room if you are going to stay here.
Yeah, you don't want to say, I'm going to pay all this money to go to Animal Kingdom Lodge and then at the last second be like, oh, but I'm going to get a regular room. I want to see the parking lot. Like if you're going to pay to stay at Animal Kingdom Lodge, just pay the extra $100 a night, have that Savannah room, wake up to a giraffe, just do that. It's more than likely going to be a once in a lifetime trip for you. So that extra $100 does not need to be your make or break point. You can have some other ways that you float that cost.
100% agree.
Now, Saratoga Springs is very close to Disney Springs and has great pools. So while Saratoga Springs is not close to parks, if you're wanting to go to Disney Springs, that is a great option because it is within walking distance to the parks. And Olivia's Cafe in Old Key West is a sleeper hit of a restaurant. So a lot of people don't really know about it or even realize that it's a place that you could eat, but you might actually find some like Disney executives having lunch there. So it's definitely a popular spot. So check it out if you're staying at Old Key West, or even if you're not staying at Old Key West and want to try something new, check it out. Now, Wilderness Lodge is a boat ride away from Magic Kingdom, but it's not conveniently located to any other park. It is absolutely beautiful, though. This is a bucket list resort for us to try it out. It does also have storybook dining with Snow White and the Evil Queen, so that's some character dining for you.
Critics aside of the live action movie recently with Snow White, I really bet that restaurant is going to be even more popular.
Yeah, especially when it comes to Disney Plus. I think it's going to be more popular once that happens. We are hoping to eat at this resort for our October trip, and I'm really hoping it's not going to be sold out because we're looking to go early in our trip instead of further out. But I think we'll be okay. But I did think about that. I was like, oh, it's going to be like packed. But then you've got the Contemporary, Polynesian, and the Grand Floridian. These are all along the monorail loop to Magic Kingdom and Epcot. So they have a pretty high price point because they have close proximity to 2 theme parks. And the Grand Floridian and Contemporary also have a walking path to Magic Kingdom, and the Grand Floridian and the Polynesian have a water taxi to Magic Kingdom. So Grand Floridian was mentioned twice there, so you can kind of tell of the 3 what might be the higher price point.
If you're looking for character dining on a non-park day,
or even a park day if you want to hop out.
Exactly. Contemporary has Chef Mickey's, and Grand Floridian has 1900 Park Fare. Personally, we have been to 1900 Park Fare, and we really liked the food that was there.
Yeah, the breakfast is really good. We haven't had the dinner. I've heard the dinner is amazing too. We love the breakfast. We try to get back there whenever we can.
more specific to character dining, there was a very interesting span of characters that were there. If you are specifically looking for character dining, we really liked Grand Floridian, 1900 Park Fair. We got to meet Tiana, Aladdin, Mirabelle. Yeah, Mirabelle was there. Ariel was there
Cinderella.
too.
Cinderella was there.
Is Cinderella too? Okay.
Yeah, I do like that. 3 of those at least are kind of characters you can't eat with elsewhere. Tiana, you can sometimes get at Akershus in Epcot, but Aladdin, there's not really a place to eat with him. Mirabelle, there's not a place to eat with her. And then Tiana, like I said, is just sometimes a one-off princess somewhere else. I wish they maybe wouldn't have put Cinderella there because you can eat with her multiple other places. But for my friends that are listening that maybe did not go to 1900 Park Fair prior to the pandemic, it was actually themed to like Cinderella. It had Prince Charming and the evil stepsisters and her stepmother. So I think they kind of felt obligated. I think they kind of felt obligated to bring at least one of those characters in. I really wish it had been one of the other ones, though. You see Cinderella so many other places, but she's iconic. I'll leave it alone. And then you also, Polynesian has Ohana. Breakfast only is when you can meet Stitch and Lilo. So that is a big one. That's really the only place you can actually find Stitch and Lilo for the most part.
Those reservations go quick.
Yes.
I mean, quick.
Spoiler, we're planning to do a dining podcast here in the next couple weeks, but Ohana is one that we always kind of say, if you want to go, do it towards the end of your time that you're going to be on property, because it'll be easier. Like if you're trying to go your first day, it's probably not going to happen for you, but I digress. And then going back to property or resorts on property, you've got Boardwalk, Beach Club, and Yacht Club. These are all within walking distance to Epcot, and they have the Skyliner access to Hollywood Studios. There is also a walking path from them to Hollywood Studios, but it is a little long. It's convenient, though, if you're trying to get there early for rope drop because other people are waiting on transportation.
Beach Club specifically has Beaches and Cream. Love that place. It's a really fun dining experience.
And then Beach Club also has Cape May Cafe, which has characters for breakfast. So 2 really good places to eat at Beach Club. In my opinion, Yacht and Beach Club kind of blur together. They're very close together and practically share a building. One just kind of melts into the other. So, if Yacht Club has a much lower price point than Beach Club, they share pools, they share amenities. So, just kind of wiggle room there. And then Boardwalk is across the little, it's not a lake. I'm going to go ahead and call it a lake, but like the little water area, but it's still in that Epcot area. Boardwalk has the Cake Bake Shop, which has been very popular since it opened last fall. We have not gotten a chance to try there. I just cannot stomach the cost that I'm seeing, but I've heard it's really great.
I'm going to pat on myself on the back for being able to say it properly. It also has Trattoria Al Forno, which has a really great and wide array of breakfast items. We tried it last Christmas before a cruise, and we were blown away by breakfast entrees and treats that they had available. One in particular, wasn't it some kind of like egg bake?
Yeah, I'm just going to butcher it. I'll try to look it up while you're talking. It was like this egg sausage like dip almost, and you like dipped bread into it.
It was delicious.
It was amazing.
It's amazing.
I immediately texted my dad and I was like, we need to try this next time you're here. You'll love it.
Wasn't there like some kind of like baked omelet thing that...
Yeah, we got like a breakfast pizza. We didn't really like that as much.
That's what it was. Okay.
But the egg dip, for some reason I want to call it like Scottish eggs. It does not seem right. But something like that, it's amazing.
Pools there are also great, and the resort has some spectacular quick service options.
The last 2 resorts we're going to talk about in the deluxe category are the Riviera and Fort Wilderness. So the Riviera is Disney World's newest resort, and it's amazing. This is one resort we haven't had a chance to stay out because it's so popular. It books up really fast. We are looking forward to trying to book it soon. We have had friends that stayed there and we got to visit them and check out the rooms. The pools are great, and the resort itself has some really spectacular views and quick service options. So it's a tall building amongst a lot of moderate resorts. And so you can look out and see Epcot, you can see the Skyliner, you can see Hollywood Studios. It's just a really cool place to be. And then they have a character breakfast. Well, they have a hotel restaurant called Topolino's, and it has character breakfast in the morning, which is really fun. It's like Paris themed. And then at night, it switches over to signature dining, and it's a really fun experience.
Am I right in saying that Topolino's is on the top floor of that resort, or at least close to the top? If it's not the top floor, it's
very close because you can see.
Yeah, you could see the Skyliner in the lake nearby. And, it's a nice view of, you can see the backside of Hollywood Studios.
Yeah, the way the restaurant is set up, you actually see Hollywood Studios-ish. Like, you can kind of see points of it. But you have to go out to the terrace to see Epcot, which is interesting.
But it's cool. You can see the spires of Galaxy's Edge from there.
And then the last resort, well, we purposely made it last because it is Fort Wilderness, and it is a deluxe resort and also a value. So the cabins have been completely upheavaled. I know that's not a word, but I'm going to use it. And redone. You can look on eBay, like they sold those old cabins, and they have new cabins that are just adorable. Those new cabins are considered deluxe. So they have deluxe resort amenities. But then on the flip side of Fort Wilderness, they also are the cheapest property in that they have campsites for tents and RVs. If you are wanting to stay at Disney World for cheap, that is going to always be your cheapest option. And so that's where Fort Wilderness was hard to put in a category because it's deluxe and way value. So that rounds out the 3 tiers of Disney World resorts. So ones that are, owned, operated, all that stuff by Disney. So now we're going to go into what is called official Disney World hotels. These are not hotels that Disney owns or operates, but they partner with Disney to kind of give you some Disney World amenities. So these hotels are, and there's a lot of them, so bear with me, B Resort and Spa Lake Buena Vista, DoubleTree Suites by Hilton Orlando, Drury Plaza Hotel Orlando Lake Buena Vista, Four Seasons Resort Orlando, Hilton Orlando Buena Vista Palace, Hilton Orlando Lake Buena Vista, Holiday Inn Orlando, Signia by Hilton Orlando Bonnet Creek, Waldorf Astoria Orlando, Wyndham Garden Lake Buena Vista, and Wyndham Lake Buena Vista. Some of these are technically on Disney World property. A lot of them are very close by at Disney Springs, but they do not offer the same kind of amenities. So they don't have, Disney transportation. Some of them might have like a shuttle that goes from the is operated by the hotel, but these are not Disney resorts. Now, I will say that a travel agent can book these, but you're going to find that most of the time they're going to want a planning fee or things like that because they're not technically that Disney certified excellence that you get with the other ones. They do offer early entry though. So that is something to keep in mind. They do offer that. That is something they all offer. Before we switch over to off property, there are a couple other hotels or resorts to note. One is Shades of Green. This resort is strictly for active and retired military. It is considered deluxe, so guests get early entry and extended evening hours. It is close by the monorail, but there is no direct access to the monorail station, and it only uses buses. So just know if you're active or retired military, this is a good option for you. And then Marriott, Swan, and Dolphin. I just always call it the Swalphin, but Swan and Dolphin. It's owned and operated by Marriott, but it is booked by Disney and is on Disney World property. I remember the first time my dad came with us to Disney World, you actually passed these hotels on the Skyliner.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like a dolphin. It looks like a big fish on top of there. Exactly. If you've never been to Disney World and you ride the Skyliner for the first time, you'll know what we're talking about. But it looks like a huge fish on top of their resort. It does not look like a dolphin. So my dad kept asking, he was like, what Disney resort is that? What is that? And I was like, it's a Swan and Dolphin. What is that? You didn't even tell me about that. What is that? So we had to finally tell him, like, it's Marriott. And so he told me the next time he goes, he's just going to stay there. For the reason being that my next point is, if you have Marriott points, you can use it at this resort.
That's
because,
cool.
Yeah, it is a Marriott owned and operated hotel. Definitely made me wonder if we should get a card that goes with Marriott, but there's too many other resorts in Disney World property we have to try. It is considered deluxe, so you get extended evening hours here, and it's also close to the Skyliner at Epcot.
That's crazy. I didn't know there was partnered hotels that are technically off property that also supply the perks of parks
I
of
think it's
resorts that are on property.
Yeah, I think it's strange they call them like official Disney World hotels. Like I don't know how they can be termed that because they're not, I don't know. To me, they're like considered good neighbor hotels, kind of like a Disneyland, but that is their official name, official Walt Disney World hotels. So just so you know, a little tidbit for you today.
So for some of you that are really, really wanting to cut corners on your resort stay, you really don't care about the extra amenities, you're just trying to get to the park, enjoy your time at the park. I totally get it. Look at ticket costs when comparing room prices. They're pretty neck and neck unless you are using points. It's hard to sway staying off property, especially with losing all the perks.
Yeah, to kind of go into detail sometimes on that. Sometimes when I give people quotes for like a full package, they'll be like, oh my gosh, that's more expensive than I would have thought. And I'll like be like, well, this is how much it would be if you just got tickets. So looking at that, the resort sometimes they're like, oh, well, actually that full cost is really not coming from the resort. It's coming from the tickets. And so it does sometimes behoove you to stop and think, well, how much is this actually going to cost me if I use tickets only? Because tickets do not fall under that umbrella of a package. And so you have to pay your tickets all right then. And so sometimes when you're really looking at how much the room is versus just the tickets alone, the resorts really sometimes with promotions are not that expensive.
Time is money. I totally get it. And just know if you're staying off property at a non-partnered hotel, just keep in mind you don't have those extra 30 crucial minutes at any of the parks to rope drop. I don't even think you can rope drop properly.
Well, you can, properly, no. You can technically rope drop at park opening, but you've got thousands of people ahead of you.
But, you can still book lightning lanes. You can still book dining reservations. It might be a little hard for some of the dining reservations, especially the hotspot places like Ohana's and stuff like that.
And dining reservations, so on property, it's 60 days out for your entire stay. If you're staying off property, it's 60 days out at each day. So if you're going to go June 26th, you're going to go 60 days from June 26th. And then if you want to stay somewhere for June 27th, you're going to go 6 days out from June 27th. So depending on how many days you're going to be eating at table service restaurants, this could be a tedious task to have to wake up early, 7, 8, 9, 10 days in a row to try to get some of those reservations.
So all that to say, even if you are trying to stay off property, non-partnered hotel to save as much money as you can, it really is worth your time to go ahead and still dish out the money for lightning lanes, especially for rides that you really, really want.
Yeah. Sometimes I see people that stay off property and just say, I'm going to stay off property, but I'm going to use the money I'm saving by staying off property to get Premier Pass.
Exactly.
Or, kind of offset it that way. Or, I'm going to stay off property, but I'm going to do a VIP tour, things like that. So, you're not really saving money, but you're using that money differently. There's nothing wrong with staying off property. We've done it before. It's just something you really want to stop and think, price out, the parking to get on property, the time it takes to get to the parks, things like that. You just really want to really think that through. There are 3 very specific times though that I do sometimes recommend people just to go ahead and look at off property. One is if they're looking at super close in. So, less than a month, less than 3 months out. They're like, hey, we really want to go in 2 months. That at that point you just want to look at off property. Because you can sometimes get a good deal off property still because they're trying to catch people at the off property hotels. And then that's where, like I said, you could then use that money to do Premier Pass or things other like that. This typically is only if you're booking super close in and those value resorts are sold out. So it's hard to beat a value resort unless you're super close in like that. The second time that I usually recommend people to look off property is if they're planning to do other activities. So, they're doing just a full Orlando. Yeah, they want to go to Universal or Discovery Cove. They're wanting to do beach days and they don't want to have to keep popping around to different resorts. Then doing something off property really makes sense in that area. And then the other one that I hear a lot is, my husband's coming in for a work-related conference, or, I'm going for a graduation. Well, it probably makes sense just to stay off property if you're only going to be there for a couple days for Disney. Don't spend all that money just for one day at Disney.
We've had a couple corporate clients that do that. They just fly in, and then their significant other end up flying in as well, or meeting them at the resort and have
one day and
quick
then
stay.
Yeah.
If you've stayed on or off property before, we'd really like to know your thoughts and insight, different aspects of which you like better and for what reasons. What is your favorite Disney resort?
Let us know what you think. We love hearing from you on social media or in a podcast review.
Made it super easy to find us in the world of social media today. Just search Ports and Palaces, not ampersand, Ports and Palaces.
Yes, he got on to me. So it's now seamless. Ports and Palaces, and is the word, across all platforms, including YouTube.
While the branding and copy looks nice with an ampersand, we were finding it was much harder for people to actually find us, even if we added metadata or hashtags to our posts that had "and" in it to transpose that. But we're pretty much everywhere, including YouTube. Have all of our podcasts up
on YouTube.
On YouTube.
And we've made it very simple. Also, in our show notes, our links are right there, so you don't even have to search for us. We have links right there in the show notes for you to find us. And if you're loving the podcast, show us some love and share it with your Disney crew and leave us a review.
We'll be sure to shout out all of our 5-star reviews on air, and we'd love to shout you out next.
Until next week, I'm Kirsten.
And this is Chad.
Happy travels from all your ports and palaces.
This podcast is sponsored by Ports and Palaces Vacations. Whether you are wanting to check out a new port along a cruise line or see the palaces of Disney and Universal, our travel advisors make your dream trip a reality. Your next trip is just a click away.